If you've ever thought of RVing full-time, or living in a tiny house, or living a similar lifestyle with minimal cost, then this is the video for you, where Brandon and I will explain the process we went through to see if we could do it before we did it. So these are things to keep in mind if you're interested in this at all.
It's been 4 months pretty much since we moved into this RV. We've pretty much survived the winter. So
thank goodness.
We know for one thing that we don't hate it. So this is a video where we can explain kind of some things that might be on your mind if you're looking for alternative means of housing and RVing might be up your alley.
So we brainstormed a little and we wrote down 10 things that we definitely think that you should keep in mind. And starting with one is square footage. This is a big one for a lot of people because a lot of people like to live big sometimes. And I totally understand. Square footage can be a big deal, but it can also not be such a big deal because you're basically living your life outside of the RV most of the time. You're going to work, you have hobbies and friends to hang out with. So you're not going to be stuck inside all the time, which I think some people get deterred from. And it really does encourage you to like live your life a little bit more, which I really like and enjoy. But it does come with a lot of storage, and you can watch our RV tour to go see what I'm talking about. We don't have to go grocery shopping every day. We have a good sized closet, and we didn't really have to sacrifice a lot when we moved in here. We just really had to think of the necessities that we use every single day. So it can be a transition, and one thing that Brandon and I did to help us do that is we lived in a studio apartment to see if this was really for us. And it was only a 6-month lease, but we ended up living there for a year because it wasn't bad. We learned how to live that way, and it really brought us closer together if I think about it. And thank God this travel trailer and other travel trailers do have doors, so there are separating rooms if you need a door for privacy. Totally understand.
I would say that if you are thinking about moving into an RV, you should be hoping to achieve some sort of a minimalist lifestyle. I don't think we really had to do a whole bunch of cutting down, but then again, like she said, we started out in a studio apartment, so we didn't have a ton of room in the first place. And I will say that the moving process of getting into this RV, it didn't take as long to get our stuff in here, but it took just as much time to get rid of the stuff that we didn't have space for and to move the stuff that we wanted to keep but we couldn't put in here into other places. That was a huge part of the moving process for us, and we really didn't even have a ton of stuff then. So make sure you want to keep things small. So our next topic is probably one of the more important ones, and that is how you should go about buying an RV. You can buy one that you can be more sure about from a dealership, or you can find somebody that's selling one, because there are tons of people selling their RVs, and there's also tons of people buying RVs right now. So it's not a bad market. We personally looked for almost a year on Facebook Marketplace for a very specific kind of RV. One that was less than 10 years old and one that was less than $20,000. If it wasn't like that, we weren't going to look at it. And how many do you think we saw? We saw like 3, right? We didn't see very many.
A good amount, and then like the ones that did make the price cut, they were older, so we just wanted something that wasn't gonna break down.
And right before we went and looked at this one, we went to a dealership and looked at all their options and could see what the price points were. When we found this one, we realized that it was half the price of anything at the dealerships, and we could see that there wasn't really any bad wear on it. He showed us, the guy that sold it to us, he showed us that the lights went on and all of that. He was a very trustworthy person, and the one thing that I would make sure that you're asking the person you're buying from, if you do choose to buy one, that you ask why they're selling it. Because it was kind of obvious to us that he was selling it to get a new one, because he wanted a newer one and he could afford it, and the man had like 3 jobs, so I mean he was busy, and it kind of made sense to us. So we took him on that, and thankfully he was very helpful in setting it up for us. He actually moved it to the park that we're at for us.
Yes.
And gave us our cable to start it up with the power. He gave us a lot of stuff that comes with it. So make sure that if you are buying it from somebody and you want to get a good deal, make sure that you ask the right questions. Why are they selling it? Is there anything wrong with it? See how honest they are first, because you don't want to buy something that's going to cost you a lot more than you're already giving them.
Another thing I guess I would encourage is to definitely look around. I would pick out a couple options and kind of see what size you want, because there's an RV, there's a travel trailer, there's fifth wheels. I'm still getting educated as I live in this RV park, looking at what everybody else has. So it's also a way to just dip your toes in and see if it's for you.
It's a big investment. It wasn't cheap for us. It wasn't crazy expensive, but I did want to make sure that I trusted the person we bought it from before I even looked at it.
And speaking of it being such a big investment, another point that we have to educate you about is the tools in the truck. You will need the tools just in case anything happens. We are not currently traveling in it, so we don't have to worry about flats. We don't really have to worry about like packing up our stuff or anything like that. But even if you aren't moving around and traveling, you probably still need the tools in case anything happens. Just like a house, you have everything that you need in your garage so that if your sink breaks down or if this or that breaks down, you have the tools you need. Or there are RV people that have their own businesses that will come to you and help you with their tools, and they will have everything that you need. They're just a little pricier, and it's a good thing to know about what you own. So having the tools is kind of like a necessity, but the truck really isn't, because you can park it somewhere at somebody's house, you know, some land, an RV park, and all you need to do is have it towed. Yeah, other than traveling, you won't really need a truck.
Yeah, we don't plan on moving it for a minute. The truck is our next investment, but if you're thinking you need a truck to get one, you don't. You can have somebody move it for you, it won't be that expensive. But if you don't have a set of tools and you aren't willing to be handy in your RV, it's going to cost you a lot of money. I went into it knowing that it was going to be a lot of work and that it was going to be a lot of learning, and I was excited about that. That actually made it a lot more fun for me. And speaking of that, comes the part that a lot of people are worried about, and that's the sewage. But I have to say, the sewage is not really the biggest problem at all. All you really need to know is that you have one hose that hooks up to a drain. If you're at a park, you can stay hooked up to the drain all the time. And then you have two tanks, one that fills with sink water and shower water, and one that fills with sewage from the toilet. And you dump the sewage first, and then you dump the other one, and you do that by pulling out two little handles, and it just goes out. And then when you're, you know, not dumping it, you close the handles and you just let it fill back up. Sometimes you have to treat the tanks, but for the most part, it's as simple as that. You just have to set it up first.
Yes, and it's not a messy job like the scene off of RV.
Not at all.
Turn it off!
That is one thing that I refer back to whenever I think of RVs and travel trailers. It seems like it's messy, but in reality, you don't get your hands dirty. You don't smell it. It's just where it is, just like a house. It's just more visible, and you have to pull a lever every now and then, which is probably like 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah, the one thing that I will say is that the toilet is very small. I do intend on getting a bigger toilet, but at the same time, there's not a whole lot more room in that little tiny bathroom for a bigger toilet, and you do have to use minimal toilet paper, and you have to get a toilet paper that's pretty thin too, because if you're using quilted northern Charmin, all that stuff, you're gonna have to clean your tank a lot. A lot.
And moving on to showers, a good point to keep in mind too. It kind of goes along with square footage and sewage. So a lot of people think that you might have to take an army shower. Totally not true. I will play 3 to 4 songs while I'm showering, and I think that's about 9 to 11 minutes if Brandon's not here and about to take a shower after me. Because if he's here and about to take a shower after me, I'll keep that in mind and I'll make my shower a little faster. And honestly, it saves me time in the day, so how can I really be mad about that? But one thing to keep in mind for those of you that are average size, because I'm short and petite, is that the shower is kind of small and you might not have a tub. Ours doesn't have a tub, not a big deal for us. We like baths, but showers are fine with me. You know, I'm not gonna fret over it. But it is a small space, so if you're like washing yourself, you might hit the wall a couple times. After doing it for a couple months, you get used to it. It's just something to transition to.
And adding on to that, this is one thing to keep in mind. There's two real types of RVs that you can buy when it comes to the power. You can buy a 30 amp and 50 amp. And 30 amp is more your smaller trailer, which you might not be living in full time. Some people do. But we bought a 50 amp because we knew that we'd be using more electricity. We knew that we'd need that. And our hot water heater can run on electricity and propane. So if we needed to, we could turn on the propane and it would make water even faster. We haven't even had to do that yet. We can both take 10-minute showers back to back with pretty much hot water the whole time. And that was really surprising to us. We really thought that we were going to be taking fast showers and showering over at our the office at our park, because they have showers there whenever we felt like we wanted to take a long one. But we haven't really had to do that.
No.
And jumping off of that, there's propane and electricity that run this thing. And you might be thinking that's going to be an expensive electricity charge, or just charge of any kind at all. But all we've found so far is that the park that we are in has a flat fixed rate on electricity. So we pay $6.50 a month. With our internet is $40 on top of that. And that covers our electricity no matter how much we use. So we try to keep electricity on all the time. We try to heat it up with electricity. We try to cool it down with electricity. We have the hot water heater on all the time. The only thing that you're going to have to pay for is the propane. I would reserve it for cooking. That's what I try to do. But sometimes you need to use it to turn on the AC and to heat it up, cool it down. But for the most part, you can get by with electricity. And with that, the internet, like I mentioned, is an additional charge on top of our rent. That's the only additional charge. And we get internet through some third-party service that our park is partnered with. And I will say, it's not the greatest, as you could probably expect. But it's not really any worse than we had when we were living in a studio apartment and we just had the lowest form of like Cox internet. It's not bad. It works, but I wouldn't expect to run too much on it at the same time. It will slow down. And
another important thing to keep in mind that the park also offers is the bathhouse where you take a shower. They have the laundromat where you will do your laundry, because in a travel trailer or an RV you can have the like washer dryer combo that you buy for $100 or $150 off of Amazon. That one's portable and you can take it anywhere. I don't even think it needs electricity, but don't hold me on that. I just know that it's portable and it's made for studio apartments and like these types of situations. But it's not that bad. It's just like going to the laundromat. If anything, a lot safer because we have key cards. So whenever you're doing laundry, you might have to keep in mind that you will have a steady little bill for doing your laundry because you're gonna have to pay for it, and that is the one thing that's not free that like they do offer. That's really the one thing that you can't do in the RV for us, is wash our clothes. There are some where you can get a stackable washer dryer combo, and yeah, you can get the portable one as she said, but ours does not have one. Most likely if you don't buy a new one, yours won't either. But you can of course wash your dishes, which is another chore that you'll have to get done throughout the week, and it's not as bad as it seems. It actually helps you keep up with your chores. And the only downside to washing dishes is that yes, you're gonna have to do them all the time. You're gonna have to do them regardless though, so it might just cut into a daily chore or an every other day thing. And there's not a lot of room on the counter, so you have to make sure they definitely don't pile up. One thing we do that makes it a lot easier though is use paper plates. And thank God they're paper. At least it's not plastic. I don't feel as bad doing it, but I'm sure it's a hack that a lot of people use here at the RV park because you don't want to do dishes all the time, and it's a small sink. Yeah, get used to rinsing your dishes, because it takes a long time to sometimes clean these dishes in the sink. And on top of dishes, when it comes to cooking, we haven't really used our oven that much because it takes up a good amount of propane. The stovetop you can run for a good amount of time, but it burns through propane pretty quickly. And we haven't even used the oven yet. We have an air fryer that pretty much does the same thing with electricity. So we tend to try to keep our propane, especially when it's the winter and we need to run the AC sometimes during the day. But yeah, just know that your oven is going to be tiny. Our oven is tiny. We had to get little cookie sheets that will fit in there because we had 3 cookie sheets and only the smallest one would actually fit in there. So don't expect to be cooking large meals in your oven. If you really want to,
if you're a huge cook, I would invest in something else that runs on electricity. And when we don't want to use the stove, we have plenty of other things we can use. We've got an electric skillet.
You can have a George Foreman for burgers, or you can go grill outside. There's like other... Oh, the camera didn't like us for a second. It was unfocusing. But yeah, there are other means of making food.
And the fridge as well is a bit small, but when we lived in a studio, it really wasn't that much smaller than what we had.
Mm-hmm.
We had a pretty small fridge then too. But it does stay cold. There's nothing, it's nothing short of an actual fridge. I promise you this. The appliances in here still work just as fine. They're just smaller. It's just like a house.
And moving on to another important point, which is, something to keep in mind depending on where you live in America or any other country, is weather and insurance. We live in Oklahoma, which is such an awesome state. It's so windy here. I love it. I mean, no, really, I could fly a kite any day if I really wanted to. It actually doesn't shake as much as you would think, but there are tornadoes here. This park is, floodable, I guess, is what they warned us, and they have signs of it. So, hail, high winds, I don't know what could happen. So, it's a good thing to keep in mind. You should probably have insurance if you're going to live in it full time, because you are going to be using it a lot, and it is going to be...
It's your house. You should treat it as such.
Yeah, take care of it, and you never know, especially if you're going to go traveling on the road. In this tin box, sometimes it'll get hot, so propane in the summer is probably going to spike. We're going to pay a lot more for that, just to keep it cool. The rain doesn't really make it that humid unless, I guess summer is coming up and it might rain then. Winter was pretty easy. I would say in the single digits, the highest temperature it got in here was 60 degrees, so that might not be that comfortable for a lot of people. We had 2 heaters plugged in, and we had our RV propane heater that turns on underneath the TV in the living room, and it only got up to 60 degrees and it was 7 degrees outside. So you will be a little cold. You might have to migrate if that's possible for you and you work from home. It's just like camping, except more coverage, and you feel way more comfortable.
Yeah, Oklahoma has some pretty extreme weather sometimes. Like she mentioned, when it got down to single digits, this thing froze pretty quickly. And we realized that it was just better to turn off the water beforehand and to let the water drain out of it than to let all the pipes freeze. Beyond that, it takes a minute for it to freeze, but when it got down to the single digits, it was cold in here. There are things that you can do to keep heat inside. We have a tarp that runs all around the edges of the RV on the outside, and that is hammered into the ground. So that blocks the wind a little bit, and it keeps the air underneath the RV a little warmer.
They sell these insulators for your windows, and I don't know if they're specific sizes for specific RVs, but I know that you can probably cut them and put them on your window, kind of like those metallic sun shades that you put in your car. They have those for RVs to keep the heat and the cool in and keep whatever you're trying to keep out.
They also have heated hoses, because you're getting your water from a normal garden hose pretty much. So they have hoses that can heat up so that they don't freeze. They have heat tape, which is something that pretty much everybody that we've talked about that has an RV has told us to get, and it has allowed us to have water in the cold times.
And it's not something to deter you guys from, just something to think about, to keep in mind, to be prepared for. And they have a bathhouse here, so you'll always have water, unless somebody hits one of the spigots and there's not a shutoff valve, which we have gone through. We have been waterless for maybe less than 24 hours about that.
And this brings us to pretty much our last point, and it is very important. And we've kind of touched on it a few times over the course of the video, but that is where you park your RV. Now, most people are going to be parking their RV in an RV park, and there are plenty of RV parks around us. We looked around for a long time. We actually ended up choosing probably one of the more expensive ones. However, there are some things like she mentioned, there are no shutoff valves on the water spigots. Some parks do have that, but in our park, if somebody runs into one, nobody has water in the entire park. Same goes for electricity. A couple weeks ago, every RV park in this little area, there's 4 of them, was out of electricity for a few hours. They had to come out and fix it. And electricity isn't guaranteed to be the same price everywhere. We liked the fact that this place had a fixed rate electricity charge. We just like the fact that no matter what, we can always use electricity and it doesn't cost us anymore. Also, the fact that they have showers that we can always go and use. Obviously the laundromat is a must-have for us since we don't have any other means of cleaning our clothes. But they even have a pool, and they sell food, and they give out free muffins and coffee every single morning if you want. Yeah, I mean, this place has a lot. It does make me feel like it's more worth the money. One thing that you might not be expecting when you move into an RV and you find a place to park it is that the people next to you are going to be pretty close to you. And you might think that you're escaping the shared wall situation, but in reality you're kind of not. The people next to us, when we moved in, were pretty loud.
Yeah.
And somewhat violent, I would say.
Yeah, it
kind of
was
scared us.
A little startling. I honestly think it was like a 1 in 100 situation because a lot of other people are quiet, and they've quieted it down since. We hadn't really had to say anything. We did ask the other neighbor across if he had dealt with this, and he responded back to us letting us know that I guess he has heard some of the commotion, and he would just put his earbuds in and go to sleep because he worked a different shift. So it didn't really bother him. We ended up talking to the office about it, and they said if they had 3 strikes or 3 complaints, then they would talk to them and kick them out of here. But they've figured out their ways, and they're leaving us alone. They're nice and quiet. These neighbors over here, perfectly fine. Don't hear anything from them.
You're definitely not escaping hearing your neighbors sometimes. Hopefully you like the people you live next to somewhat, because if not, you might not be able to move in.
Where you park is a big deal because there are people that live on the inside and the outside. And if you live on the outside, you're more likely to get hit if somebody is towing the trailer around. And if you don't have insurance, then you're screwed, I'm assuming. And that's not something that you want to happen. You don't probably ever want to deal with that even if you do have insurance. So it's a good thing to keep in mind where you park. If there's trees around, if there's poles, high winds, it might fall on your travel trailer. I've seen that happen to people.
And before we end, we have a little bonus topic for you guys, which is what we are looking forward to with owning our RV, because we don't plan on living in this park forever, and we don't plan on not being able to move it forever. We plan on getting a truck within this year so that we can actually move it further back in the RV park so we can get closer to the grass for Sandy. But beyond that, we're looking to move to somewhere with a more temperate climate, somewhere where it stays the same all year round. That way we can have some space for Sandy and we can create a little outdoor area. We're going to take the freedom that the RV will give us, and we'll be able to move wherever we want, whenever we want, and it would be even better if we could both work on the road, which is a huge dream of mine.
Yeah, mine too. I just want to travel.
But you never know.
And be able to move this. It's just like such a convenience. It's definitely something we want to take advantage of.
The freedom that you have, you can just pack up all your stuff, move somewhere else. You can't possibly get that somewhere in a house.
You get to feel at home while you're traveling, which is so awesome. You get to like step outside your door and maybe see Mount Rushmore or something.
And we haven't moved it once, but we still wake up some days and we're like, man, we live in an RV. Isn't that freaking cool? Like, our place is paid off. We can take it anywhere. And I haven't looked back since then. So
me either.
If you're looking for a small lifestyle, I think this would work.
Yes.
It really does for us.
It's awesome. Totally recommend. You can experience a lot more and be grateful for what things you do have and the things that you do enjoy doing, because you can still do all of that and have all of that in an RV. We hope that you guys learned something from this video and are going to do some more research. Ask us some questions down below. I'll definitely get back to you. And if you guys like this video, we have a video coming up, which is a week in our life at an RV park, and that'll give you some more insight as to what our lives are like, and you can figure out if it's for you. And we hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for coming, thank you for sticking to the end, and until next time, we'll see you in our next video, so peace.